There are so many incredible games available as part of your Xbox Game Pass subscription, and with the library constantly cycling through different games, sometimes it can get pretty hard or even overwhelming to know which games are actually good to play. Well, today I've collated a lot of different information based on research and my own opinions to bring you a list of 15 hidden gems on the Xbox Game Pass library that you shouldn't miss in 2025. With that, my name is Fletcher and this is Xbox Nation, and let's dive into these incredible experiences you can't afford to miss. It's no secret that on the channel I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings, and my different LEGO sets, Middle-earth figurines and so much more shows how much I absolutely love this franchise. When I throw up Shadow of War as a recommendation here on the channel, I really do mean it, as this game is currently the best Lord of the Rings game we have available on Xbox, let alone Xbox Game Pass. Yes, we had some absolute bangers from yesteryear, rest in peace Lord of the Rings Conquest, but if you want to annihilate some orcs and take part in full-on castle sieges, then this game hits that nail on the head completely. Of course, the main highlight with any of these entries is the innovative Nemesis system, so each orc you encounter has their own unique personality, memories and even grudges based on your past encounters. I highly recommend this game, and it's such a shame that Monolith Studios are no longer around. I love a good racing game, and we do have quite a few on Xbox Game Pass to this day. However, one game that many hold in such high regard has often kind of been put to the wayside, and that is none other than Wreckfest. This is quite unfortunate, as this racing game is easily one of the best available on the current generation hardware, and it's a ton of fun right out the gates. This demolition derby racer delivers realistic physics with over-the-top crashes and an intense competition where destruction is just as important as your speed. Unlike traditional racing games, Wreckfest actually does reward your chaos, whether that's smashing into opponents in a derby arena or just battling for first place on a track littered with debris. The game's physics-based crashes make every race just so unpredictable. Definitely don't miss this one, as it really is a hidden gem, and with the second game arriving sometime within the next year for Xbox consoles, it's well worth experiencing. I do have to say, I was one of those who completely neglected RoboQuest when it came out on Xbox Game Pass a couple of years ago now, and that was a massive oversight on my part, as this roguelike game is so blimmin' fantastic, and I can see why so many call this one of the ultimate hidden gems, especially on Game Pass. As mentioned, this is a high-energy roguelike FPS that does throw you into a futuristic world filled with different rogue robots and endless action. This game blends the best elements of classic shooters with modern roguelike progression, making every run really different from the last. As you progress though, you'll be unlocking some different upgrades and new abilities, and then customizing your character's playstyle to take on increasingly difficult enemies. If you love games with fast, fluid gunplay and the thrill of randomized runs, then RoboQuest is a hidden gem that's worth playing. Personally, I do find it comparable to the Doom games, so if you love that sort of run and gun action, you will absolutely adore this one. The city building genre isn't for everyone, and that's completely fine. However, if you want to dip your toes into this area without going balls deep into something like City Skylines, then SteamWorld Build is a great starting point. This one really flips the city builder genre on its head by merging town management with dungeon mining, and yes, it's exactly as cool as it really does sound. This one though is actually set in the steampunk meets western SteamWorld universe, where you're tasked with creating a thriving desert town on the surface while mining ancient deep tech down below to help your robot citizens escape the dying planets. Of course, up top you'll be managing your housing, supply chains and so much more, and then underground is a different beast entirely, as there's lots of exploration, creature encounters and tower defense mechanics. It's pretty much two games in one, beautifully balanced and full of charm, and really perfect for fans of management sims, or just, as I mentioned, someone who just wants to dive into that sort of city building genre for the very first time. You probably heard me glaze Hell Let Loose in one of my previous videos about the best games on Xbox Game Pass, but I'm going to absolutely glaze this game again, as this is my favourite FPS that we have on the service. If you like the large-scale tactical battles that you experience in games like Battlefield, but want a more hardcore aspect like we see in games like Insurgency Sandstorm, then Hell Let Loose is the king of this genre. You take part in massive battles across multiple different World War II locations, and all of the weaponry, maps, vehicles and more are all era accurate, and that even goes for the handling of every single weapon. Communication here is also incredibly important, as you'll have to go on comms with different squad leaders, others in your squad, commanders, tank squads and so much more. There is no better rush than shouting down your comms under the hail of bullets that can end you in one shot, and it's easily one of the most intense FPS experiences out on the market. Astroneer is certainly a real hidden gem on the Xbox Game Pass library, and I'm not really too sure why so many out there kind of neglect this indie experience, as it's so beautifully crafted and an entertaining experience. This one though is set in a colourful, procedurally generated solar system where you will take on the role of an astronaut exploring alien planets. Your primary goal is to essentially gather resources, build bases, and then uncover the mysteries of these distant worlds. The game features a unique terrain deformation system which allows you to shape the environment however you like, by digging tunnels, creating bridges, or just carving out a vast underground shelter. As you can imagine, crafting and automation play a huge role in this game, and the game's oxygen system forces you to strategically place tethers or vehicles to extend your exploration range. Whether you want to play this one in solo or just join up and play the 4-player co-op, Astroneer offers such a relaxing yet engaging survival experience. Crypt Custodian is one of those games that totally surprised me, but in the best way possible. You play as a janitor in the afterlife. Yes, seriously, you have been cursed to clean up the mess in an ancient crypt as punishment, and what follows is a delightfully weird blend of Metroidvania exploration, snappy combat, and puzzle solving. The tone here strikes that balance between spooky and charming, and it feels something like Tim Burton might have dreamed up, but is packed with so much heart and humour. What really drew me in though was the world design. Every area here is interconnected, dense with secrets, and then constantly rewarding you for poking around. The movement in that case is also very smooth, the tools that you unlock are incredibly clever, and the upgrades also give you real reason to backtrack without ever feeling like a real chore. It's not trying to reinvent the genre, it just executes this formula with a lot of love and tons of smart ideas. I went into this one kind of expecting a quirky time killer, but I ended up completely hooked. Then we have Eternal Strands, which feels like a game swinging way above its weight class. This one drops you into a massive open world where weather and physics aren't just visual, they're actually part of the entire gameplay. Imagine fusing sort of Zelda-like exploration with third-person action and elemental magic that reacts to the environment. So for instance, fighting a fire beast during a snowstorm, well, you'll be at a disadvantage, but if you flip it and set fire to your surroundings in a dry forest, and suddenly you've got the upper hand. It makes combat and traversal feel very dynamic and reactive in a way that's really rare outside of these big budget titles. The game lets you climb almost anything, glide across valleys, and manipulate magic in ways that actually feel empowering. There's a real rhythm to discovering just how this world works and then using it against your enemies, or just trying to reach that ledge that you thought was way out of bounds. It's definitely ambitious, but it's also refreshingly focused, with tight mechanics and a world that rewards your curiosity. This is exactly the kind of game that I love stumbling upon on Xbox Game Pass, and I highly recommend you dive into it as soon as you can. If you like turn-based strategy games but with a more roguelike twist, then For the King 2 will keep you glued to your screen for hours upon hours. This is a pretty new Game Pass edition, but easily worth diving into as it definitely went under the radar. Every world in this game is actually procedurally generated, meaning that no two adventures you go on are ever the same. It all takes a mix of skill, patience, and luck to explore this entire kingdom, and it's well worth doing. You will be battling different enemies alongside looting treasures and ultimately just trying to stay alive. The dice roll mechanic keeps things very unpredictable, and the 4-player co-op mode is just utterly fantastic. The class system as well here is pretty awesome, and then lets you choose from different unique heroes, adding so much depth to the entire playthrough. If you love deep strategy games but with a mix of tabletop mechanics and roguelike progression, then this game is just endlessly replayable and well worth playing on the Xbox Game Pass. So here's one that I almost skipped, but once I loaded it up, I didn't stop for hours, and that's none other than Go Mecha Ball. Imagine a mech suit that rolls around like Sonic the Hedgehog, but then fires machine guns like a twin-stick shooter, and you've pretty much got the general gist of it. Every room in this game feels like a pinball arena just loaded with enemy chaos, and the way that your mech glides and boosts through it all is just ridiculously satisfying. The shooting itself feels incredibly tight, but it's the momentum that really makes the game shine, as you're always on the move, bouncing off walls and chaining together explosions, while unlocking crazy upgrades that change how every run plays. I kept getting that sort of one more try itch, not just because I wanted to win, but because the act of playing was just so incredibly fun. The levels here are so colourful, compact, and action-packed, perfect for short sessions that somehow stretch into gaming marathons. Kinitogami Path of the Goddess is one of the most distinct experiences that I've ever played. It blends real-time action with strategy, but wrapped in a surreal Japanese folklore-inspired world that feels like a living painting. The game here though, if you're wondering, does center around protecting a divine maiden, as she ultimately has to purify the corrupted land, and it's your job to guide her through a path while fighting off waves of twisted enemies. But don't let the experience fool you, as it's not just sword swinging, you're also commanding your own villagers, setting up defenses, and then preparing for nightfall where things get truly intense. That day and night structure creates this great rhythm. You plan and position during the day, then scramble to survive when the creatures come out at night. Visually, it's stunning. The art direction here is very elegant and haunting, with atmospheric music that completely pulls you in. I went into this one at the time when it launched with no expectations, and found something truly layered, thoughtful, and totally captivating. It's got tons of heart, depth, and style, all working in so much harmony. Now, if you're looking for something that just throws you straight into the madness, Mullet Mad Jack is exactly it. This game doesn't mess around. You're given 10 seconds to live, and the only way to extend your life is by constantly killing things. There's no time to think, it's essentially just a time to act. It's such a frantic first-person shooter that's drenched in lots of neon and built around speed, twitch reflexes, and absolute chaos. You dash through each level like you're mainlining caffeine, while enemies flying in, everything exploding, and synthwave music thumping in the background. The whole thing feels like a forgotten 80s anime filtered through a Game Boy and just shot out of a cannon. It's absolutely hilarious, but believe it or not, it's incredibly stylish and surprisingly challenging, especially once you try to master the mechanics. I found myself grinning like an idiot every single run, and it's just so absurd and just so energetic. There's nothing quite else like it on the Xbox Game Pass library, and to be honest, I think that's exactly why it stuck with me. Here's one game that I didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did, and that's none other than Orcs Must Die Death Trap. This isn't your average tower defense game. Instead of watching from above like others in the genre, instead you're right in the middle of the action, laying your own traps, casting spells, and physically fighting off waves of orcs, demons, and so much more. What makes this game click though is its hybrid design. You have everything here from strategic placement that really does matter, but so does your timing and skill during each battle itself. Of course, Death Trap actually leans more into a sort of cooperative gameplay loop instead of the usual sort of mission to mission structure that we've seen in the previous entries. This time there's a lot for us to unlock, as you'll be choosing your different war mages that you want to go into battle with, and then you'll be unlocking unique skills per each of them and unique traps, and then leveling them up with experience that you gain through every single playthrough. It is a game that you really need to stick with, as over time the battles become more outrageous and the orcs that you face become even more powerful. It's one co-op experience that's highly recommended by me at Xbox Nation, and I tell you what, it was a good start to this year when this game dropped on the service. ReCore might not have the biggest name in the Game Pass library, but it definitely has one of the biggest hearts. Set in a sun-scorched desert world, you play as Jewel, a lone scavenger trying to piece together a broken planet with the help of your robotic companions. It has got a little bit of everything here, from fast-paced combat, light platforming, dungeon crawling, and clever puzzle solving. The best part though of the overall experience, well for me anyway, was your bot companions. They're not just sidekicks like you kind of experience in other games in this genre, they're actually part of the world's mechanics, each of them with their own unique abilities that help you explore and fight in different ways. While it did have a rocky launch, the Definitive Edition, which is on Game Pass, has smoothed out the experience and made it truly into something special. I came into this one for the robots originally when it launched on the Xbox One consoles many moons ago, but I stayed for the world and the vibe entirely. I've even grabbed the collector's edition myself, as I absolutely adore this game, and I feel it's a real hidden gem that people never got to experience. If you're a Star Wars fan and you've never tried Squadrons, you're seriously missing out. This is a full-blown space combat sim that puts you right into the cockpit of X-Wings, TIE Fighters, and so much more, and it doesn't hold back. Everything here is from the first-person perspective, and the detail inside each ship is utterly ridiculous. You're constantly managing power between your engines, shields, and weapons, while dogfighting at light speed in beautifully rendered space environments. It's not just flashy arcade action either, this thing really demands your skill. You have to know your ship, anticipate your enemies, and fly with purpose. The single player though is also pretty solid, as switching perspectives between New Republic and Empire is utterly insane, but the real magic is in its multiplayer. Tight team coordination, tactical flying, and some wild highlight moments make it just so endlessly replayable. It's one of the few Star Wars games that really captures that gritty pilot fantasy, and once I got the hang of it, I was completely hooked. So, do you have any hidden gems that you think are worth playing on Xbox Game Pass? You'll have to let me know in the comments below. Like this video if you enjoyed, or also hit that like button if you found a game in this list that you've never heard of before. Do also subscribe as well, as I do upload Xbox content here on the channel every single day. Whilst you're here though, why don't you check out the video on screen now that I covered yesterday, as there's 15 brand new Xbox games that have been announced and updated, and I tell you what, there's some exciting additions coming very soon to our consoles.